But first, the Golden State Warriors were eliminated last night by the Sacramento Kings by a final score of 118-94 at the Golden One Center in Sacramento. They lit their cute little beam, which is nice. You know, it's the biggest moment in the history of the Kings franchise, unless you count out the days of Tiny Archibald. But to their credit, they got the job done, and sent the Golden State Warriors home packing. Now, there's a lot of different areas to cover this. I don't want to be too long-winded. We have a lot of things to talk about on the show today, but I want to kind of zero in on what this means for the Warriors franchise and really what has been the slow death of the Warriors dynasty in the last couple of years to a certain degree, and certainly this season. So first of all, Steph Curry, who's the head of the Warriors snake and has been for this entire run, obviously. Steph is undeniably one of the 10 greatest basketball players ever. Steph did not play poorly. Now, Steph did have a multitude of turnovers. If I have the stat right, he had 6 turnovers. In fact, that's not going to get the job done. He was minus 21 when he was on the floor. But 8 for 16, shot 50%, went 3 for 7 from three-point range, scored 22 points, grabbed 4 boards, only had 2 assists. If you watched that game last night, Steph was as unable to create separation as I think I've ever seen him, and just struggling to get any open looks at all, because simply put, no one else could space the floor. Klay Thompson was 0 for 10 from the field. More on Klay in just a second. Draymond Green, who did score 12 points, is not known for being a scorer. He's more known for doing other stuff. Wasn't great defensively, but it had a good first half on Sabonis. Struggled at times with the second half, especially once Alex Len checked in and didn't do a great job on Harrison Barnes. Only 6 assists, 3 rebounds. And a very troubling stat is that Steph Curry scored 22 points last night, and the Golden State Warriors starters, the rest of the Golden State Warriors starters, scored 26. So Steph scored 4 fewer points than the other 4 Warriors starters. The Warriors starters in totality, including Steph, this is a wild stat, folks, outscored a 104-48 by the Kings starters. This kid for the Sacramento Kings, and props to him, he played really well. Keon Ellis, 15 points, doing a good job playing defense, knocking down 3-point shots. De'Aaron Fox did his thing. Keegan Murray was awesome with 32 points, hit 8 3-pointers. The Kings were, in every sense of the word, the better basketball team last night, and they deserved to win that basketball game. For Golden State, here's what I'm looking at. So, some of the hallmarks of the Golden State Warriors dynasty has always been about, showing up in big games, being ready to go, stepping up when the moment calls for it. Now, I'm not alluding to Steph. If anybody, I haven't seen anybody rip Steph, because if anyone watches that game last night, Steph was not exactly the reason for the Warriors struggling. There's no question about that. Klay Thompson got the nickname of Game 6 Klay, and basically saying, hey, when the moment calls for Klay Thompson to show up, you can rely on him to show up. But let's look at Klay Thompson. Last night was the elimination game. You win, or you win the game, or you go home. Klay Thompson in elimination games, if we have the stat, from 2015, so the start of the Warriors dynasty, up through 2022, the most recent championship. Here's Klay Thompson in elimination games. So basically, if the Warriors lose, they are donezo. Klay Thompson's stats in elimination games, they're phenomenal from 2015 to 2022. Klay Thompson, 26.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.6 steals, which is impressive, shoots 46% from the field, 50% from three-point range. He hits about 5.5 threes per game and has a defensive rating of 107. So he could lock up, that was really peak Klay, could hit 5 threes a game and lock up your best perimeter offensive player, particularly your best point guard. So Klay Thompson was great in elimination games throughout the Warriors dynasty. The last 2 years, he has been simply unplayable. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. We can put up his stats in elimination games the last couple of years. He averages 8 points a game on these shooting splits are insane. He averages 8 points a game on 16% from the field, 17% from three-point range. He's good for about a 3.5 per game. And his defensive rating is not good at all. It's only 118, down from 107. So one of the hallmarks of the Warriors dynasty, Klay shows up in big games. If you noticed when I predicted on Monday that the Warriors would win last night, I didn't really bring up Klay Thompson. I'm like, okay, he's finding a rhythm. But last year, if you remember, hey, Game 6 Klay, here we go. games of Klay, we've seen the last of him. At least in a Warriors uniform. And matter of fact, Klay Thompson, as an individual, we have likely seen his last game as a Golden State Warrior. To Draymond Green. And this has fairly, I think, been, a lot of the season has been put on him, is the fact that, hey, you have the 2 suspensions. You have the suspension for choking Rudy Gobert, which I say right now, I said in November, I say in April. I absolutely, to this day, defend Draymond Green for doing what he did in the Timberwolves loss with the whole Gobert thing. My issue with Draymond is that he held on to Gobert too long. I don't want any NBA players getting choked out there. But Rudy Gobert, I did a whole film breakdown of the altercation. Rudy Gobert, big 7'2" Rudy Gobert, typical, kind of playing to his reputation, goes to choke 6'6" Klay Thompson in an altercation when Klay's getting into a beef with Jaden McDaniels. He's about to put his big long arms around Klay. Draymond comes blindside and actually wraps Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. Draymond got 5 games for that. I defended it because he was defending a teammate. I would actually have an issue if Draymond didn't defend him in some way, shape, or form. The punch on Jusuf Nurkic was inexcusable. And no matter how you slice it, Jusuf Nurkic is just guarding Draymond Green in the post. Draymond, unprovoked, swings around, clocks him in the jaw. And he misses about 20 games after that. Comes back on MLK Day. This is the incident with Nurkic happened in mid-December. He came back in mid-January. So he missed a whole month of action. Now, mind you, the Golden State Warriors, all of that still won 46 games this year. Ironically, 2 more than they did a year ago. Now, the problem was a year ago, 44 wins got you the 6th seed. This year, 46 wins gets you the 10th seed. Goes to show you how loaded the Western Conference was this year. But if you look at Golden State, they finished as the 10th seed, okay? They finished 3 games back of the 6th seed, which is the Phoenix Suns at 49 wins, 3 games back of avoiding the play-in tournament entirely. I say that, and I transition you to a Draymond stat that I've given out the last few weeks, that if Draymond just stays on the floor, we're good. So this stat does not count the play-in loss to the Kings. This is just regular season, all 82 games. When Draymond Green this season played a full game, Golden State was 13 games over 500. In the games he got thrown out, 1-3. For the record, 2-11. You see down there, 2-11 since 2019 when Draymond Green gets thrown out. When Draymond didn't play at all, and most of those games, you see the 13-14 record, most of those games were due to suspension, not just, sitting out or injury, whatever. A game under 500 when Draymond doesn't play, 2 games under 500 when he gets thrown out, 13 games over 500 when he plays. I have been Draymond Green's biggest defender, I think, in the media. I think Draymond has been, we'll talk about the Warriors dynasty, top 10 moments, Bryce's best 10 moments in the Warriors dynasty later in the show. They do not get to 4 championships. They are not a dynasty if they don't have Draymond Green. The toughness and the intensity and just the overall skill he brings on the defensive end, the catalyst he is offensively, being able to get the Splash Brothers open looks, the leadership, holding guys accountable, doing something that Steph, Klay, that's not really in their DNA, is to kind of get in guys' faces, be confrontational. Draymond has been invaluable, and I'd absolutely bring Draymond Green back next year. Everybody's suggesting, hey, you got to move him. I can't do that. He's too important to the Golden State Warriors. What is Shannon Sharp as a saying, production intolerance or something? If Draymond's still productive, which clearly you saw that stat, he is, you keep Draymond Green. And to the last, and certainly not least most important member of the Warriors core 3, Mr. Curry. I said last night, I did an IG Live, a brief IG Live in the waning moments of that basketball game last night. And I was thinking about Steph, and I've religiously said, 2 years ago, I thought he was the best player in the world. That finals, that not just the finals, the playoff run he put together 2 years ago was legendary. The finals against Boston, against the defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart, was something to behold. Said he was the best player in the world then. When Jokic won the title last year, I had Steph at number 2, and I've maintained that all season long. Get Steph in the playoffs, and he's dangerous. Still believe that. But Steph has transitioned into a portion of his career, the stage of his career, where he's still great. 26 a game, led the league by far in three-pointers made. For the record, played 77 games this year, so he didn't suffer any major injuries. He has officially entered into the stage that LeBron James did about 2-3 years ago, probably 3 years ago after the Solomon Hill injury happened, when he dove into LeBron's ankle, and that was the last we saw of peak prime LeBron James. he's in that stage where he's still great. He can, dare I say, still be the best player in a title contender. Or title team, rather. He can't carry average teams deep in the playoffs anymore. Simply can't. Last year he could. 50 points against the Sacramento Kings. Took the Lakers 6 games. And you know, as I said, games 1 and 4, go either way games. Can't do that anymore. Still be great. Still have great playoff performances. Doesn't diminish what he's done in the past. But he is 36 years of age. And I can prove it to you with these stats. Now, we're throwing a lot of stats today, but I think they back up my argument pretty well. Steph Curry was having, if not for the Warriors' record, an MVP caliber season through the first part of the year. So prior to the All-Star break, here's Steph's numbers. 28 a game on 46% from the field, 42% from 3, which for a 6'3 guard is crazy efficient. 5 assists, 4.5 rebounds, playing 33.5 minutes. After the All-Star break, all of those numbers, including his minutes, plummet. And that matters to me. He goes from 28 points to 22 points. Shooting splits go from 46, 42 to 42, basically 38. 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 31 minutes a game. His minutes went down after the All-Star break. So you would think, hey, he'd be fresher. Wasn't as efficient. Steph seemed, and I watched the games, I'm like, hey, Steph's having rough nights. The Warriors are somehow finding a way to win. Steph seemed to wear down at the end of these games because he is 36 years old and he is in year 15. That's where LeBron was about 2 years ago. That's where most guys are when they get to the stage of this career. Listen, the guys can't be 25-year-old springy athletes their entire lives. You know, Charles Barkley had a great line last night. Sports are for young people. They're not for old people. Now, Steph is still awesome. Steph is still absolutely a top 10 player in the world, but he's not going to be the guy who can carry a team to a championship, which, for the record, he did 2 years ago. That 2022 title's looking even better for Steph's resume in hindsight. But that's what the Golden State Warriors are today. They are a dynasty that, as currently constructed, is dead. You cannot win a title in 2024. Next, really, that's past now. In 2025. With Steph, Draymond, Klay as your key pieces. You can't do it anymore. You can win with Steph as your key piece. And as for Steph, and this is the last point I'll make. I've definitely said it for about 3 weeks now, ever since the Draymond ejection against Orlando. And I'm really nervous about this today, especially as the news on this front has poured in over the last 48 hours or so, that I'm really nervous about the next 4 months for the Golden State Warriors. I'm not that nervous about free agency because, frankly put, if I know anything about Joe Lacob, that dude is pissed off how the season ended. Joe Lacob, for those who don't know, owner of the Golden State Warriors. He is as aggressive as they come. He's the Stan Kroenke, who's one of my favorite team owners in sports, of the NFL. He will go for it. The next 4 months are going to be key to the Warriors in terms of if they can compete for anything the next 2 years or so, 2-3 years if we're being generous. I have said a few months ago, I'll say now, I think there's a chance that the 2024 Olympic Games could play a similar factor in Steph Curry's decision on his future the way it did with LeBron James in 2008. Remember that now, again, different scenarios. LeBron was in his early 20s. Steph is 36. Different stage in their career. LeBron hadn't won a title. Steph had 4. Again, totally different stages of their career. But remember LeBron, Mr. Cleveland, I'm staying here my whole career. Then he goes to Beijing. Then he hangs out with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Kobe and Chris Paul, Dwight Howard. Pretty good team. LeBron looks around. He's like, whew, it is fun playing with these guys. You know, guys like Mo Williams, Anderson Varejao, Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Ain't that fun carrying them to 60 wins a year and won finals in 2007. Be nice if I could play with a couple of these guys in my future. And 2 years later, we went to Miami. Steph Curry's going to play with LeBron, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and a host of other awesome American basketball players in 4 months, or 4 months at the Olympics. And he's going to look around and see, okay, LeBron's got Anthony Davis. Kevin Durant's got Devin Booker. A guy who's not even on Team USA. Giannis has Damian Lillard. Kawhi, who just joined Team USA, he's got Paul George. Jimmy Butler, who's not on the team, but he has Bam Adebayo, who is on the team. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing, okay, all of these contending basketball teams have a number 2 co-star except for me. Draymond is still good. Draymond can still be valuable to a title team. He cannot be your second best player in 2024 or 2025. So Steph will look around and say, yeah, what I got around me isn't going to cut it. What these guys have around them, it will. And I think it could impact his decision on his future. Where Steph, he's always been Mr. Warrior, and I don't doubt that. I don't doubt his sincerity in that regard. He loves the Bay Area. His family's lived there for 15 years now. He's raised 3 kids with 4 on the way. Number 4 on the way, rather. But he looks around and he says, what am I hoping to accomplish here? I'm past the stage where I'm winning MVP, so that's done. Klay's going to be gone. That's my man. It's my splash brother. He's going to be gone after this year. Chris Paul's contract's off the books. We'll see if he comes back in reduced dealing. There's a chance that happens. But he looks around. Do I want to be loyal? Or do I want to maybe stack a couple championships? Maybe get to 5. Dare I say 6? And it becomes a conversation. Hey, man, you can't put Magic over Steph now. I mean, he's got 6 championships. Look at the longevity. 1 for 2 different teams. Steph's thinking about that. And Steph had a quote last night. I just want to win. He didn't say I want to win here. I just want to win. Golden State Warriors had more pressure on them this offseason. Joe Lacob, Peter Guber, all the Warriors brass, Mike Dunleavy Jr., Steve Kerr, have more pressure on them right now than they've had in the history of their professional basketball careers to put the requisite talent around Steph Curry. I think they have the assets to do it. A lot of young players. Jonathan Kuminga could be turned into a potential win-now superstar guy. But as we see here today, the Golden State Warriors, as currently constructed, will never win another championship ever again. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.